So since this is another kind of variation, so still we are going to apply here. We are going to apply here the same steps that we have applied on solving any kind of variation. So then, remember natin yung life, di ba? A blessed day to all of you, my dear students. Blessed because still, nandito pa rin tayo, nandiyan pa rin kayo, buhay pa rin tayong lahat. And also, blessed because another day na naman na matututo tayo ng another lesson in math. So we are now on lesson number 4. Another lesson about variation. So we are here going to continue discussing variation. So we are going to discuss another kind of variation here. So yung lesson number 4 natin will focus on the kind of variation that we call combined variation. So ano ba yung combined variation? By the word itself, combined. It's combination. So yung first three, isama na natin yung direct square, yung first kinds of variations na discuss natin, combine na natin siya. So ibig sabihin, pag nakita mo in a certain problem of variation na may involved na two kinds of variation, that means we are pertaining to combined variation. So ano ba yung combined variation? Just like what I mentioned to you, combined variation is a combination of two kinds of variation. So dalawang kinds of variation dapat makita natin. So ano mga possible combinations na pwede natin ma-encounter para masabi natin that we are dealing with combined variation? Una, so pwedeng ang combination natin is a direct and inverse variation. Kasi pares lang din naman yun. There are two different kinds of variation. Also, another combination is direct square variation and inverse variation. Then, third is joint and inverse variation. So, yan yung mga possible combinations natin ng combined variation. Anong papasin nyo? Wala tayong direct and joint. Bakit sa tingin nyo walang direct and joint variation? Kasi di ba sabi natin, yung joint variation is similar to direct variation. So, ang pinagkaiba lang ng joint is that it involves more quantities. So, dapat ang combination natin, dalawang magkaibang kind of variation. Just like direct and inverse, direct square variation and inverse variation, and joint and inverse variation. So, yun yung mga possible combinations na pwede natin ma-encounter when we are pertaining to combined variation. So, in combined variation, it already involves three or more quantities. So, it's not only limited to three quantities na katulad ng joint variation, it can also involve three quantities. But also, it involves more than three quantities. So, it starts from three. The minimum quantities involved when we are pertaining to combined variation are three quantities. Or it can be more than three quantities. So, ganun yung combined variation. So, tingnan natin mga combination of two kinds of variation. So, panakita natin in a certain statement of variation. That means we are pertaining to combined variation. So, paano ba mga examples ng statement of variation na masasabi natin combined variation? So, here are these. So, we are here going to give examples of statements of variation which involves combined variation. Then, we are going to translate it. So, ano pa yung translation niya into symbols? So, let's have the first one. So, the first one natin, that it's x varies directly as y and inversely as z. So, it involves three quantities, x, y, and z. But it involves two kinds of variation, the direct variation and inverse variation. So if we know on how to translate yung mga naunang kinds of variation that we have discussed, that means matatranslate din natin to just like the same way we translated those kinds of variation. So again, we should come up also with two translations of it. The translation of it the same way as we read it, then the other one is its translation in terms of K. So how do we translate it? This statement of variation na matatawag natin combined variation. X varies directly as Y. So doon muna tayo sa direct variation. X varies directly as Y. Kapag translate natin siya, it should be X is equal to KY. And inversely as Z. Kapag inverse, nasa denominator na yung second quantity. So it will come up with X is equal to KY, ayun yung direct, over Z, ayun naman yung inverse. So that's why we translated it as X is equal to KY over Z. Paano naman yung translation niya in terms of K? So madali lang yun. Yung K natin, etong dalawang nasa left side na variable, or sa madaling salita, yung first quantity involved and the last quantity are to be multiplied. So, to be multiplied, and that would be the numerator of it. Then, yung kasama ng K, that would be its denominator. Yung nasa gitna, yun yung magiging denominator niya. Basta yung una at yung huli, product of it, ito yun. X and Z, get the product, that's XZ. Then, yung Y, yung nasa denominator. So, we'll come up with K is equal to XZ, ito yun. Product niya, that would be XZ, that would be its numerator, over Y, yung kung ano yung kasama ng K, to sa unang translation natin. That would be its denominator. That's how we form the equation on how are we going to find for the constant of variation. That's how we translate the first statement of variation involving combined variation. Let's try another. Let's have here number 2. A varies directly as the square of B and inversely as C. Then A varies directly as the square of B and inversely as C. Yung direct square variation, parang yung direct, iba yung translation niya. So ganun, parang ganito rin, kaibahan nga niya is that one quantity has square. So it will be A is equal to KB squared over C. So yung una, yung nasa left side, yung nasa gitna, ayun yung kasama ng K. Tapos yung huli, ayun yung nasa denominator part. Then, for us to come up with the translation of it in terms of K, so multiply yung nasa left side, saka yung nasa denominator, AC. That would be the numerator, katulad nito. Then kung ano yung kasama ng K, that would be the denominator. So it will be K is equal to AC over B squared. So that's how we translate that statement of variation in number 2, which involves direct square variation and inverse variation. So let's have number 3. So for number 3, we do have here D varies jointly as F and G and inversely as H. Again, D varies jointly as F and G and inversely as H. So joint variation is the same way as translating direct variation, di ba? So D is equal to KFG. Ayun yung joint. D is equal to KFG. Then inversely as H. So ayun yung denominator na. H. Then, for us to come up with the formula for finding K, so we do have multiply these two. That's DH. Yun nasa numerator. Then kasama ng K na FG, ayun yung nasa denominator. So we do have K is equal to DH over FG. So in the third example, so it already involves 4 quantities. So nakadepende sa given statement of variation natin kung anong ilang quantities yung involved there. So depending on the combination of the two kinds of variation. So just like what I'm always telling you, in order for you to come up with correct answer, dapat sa start pa lang, tama na yung ginagawa natin. So it would be better since medyo nakakalito yung translating combined variation. So as long as you are practicing it very every day, then mamamaster nyo rin on how to translate combined variation, statement of combined variation into symbols. So that magiging tama yung translation ninyo, then magiging tama ka sa answer mo in the end. So, ganun lang naman yun. So, that's how we translate, again, statements of variation, of combined variation into symbols. And again, just like the first kinds of variation that we have discussed, so since this is another kind of variation, so still we are going to apply here. We are going to apply here the same steps that we have applied on solving any kind of variation. So, remember natin yung life, di ba? So, life pa rin i-apply natin. So, una, we are going to translate. Let's translate the statement of variation into symbols. Then second, yung pangalawa, its constant of variation is to be sought. Then third, form the equation of variation. Then fourth, equations formed is to be used in finding for the unknown. So that's same steps that we have applied on the first kinds of variation that we have discussed, and also the same steps that we are going to apply here. So now, let's apply those steps also in order for us to solve for an example of combined variation. So let's have here example number 1. Example number 1, the problem is, if A varies directly as B and inversely as C, and A is equal to 8 when B is equal to 4 and C is equal to 2, find A when B is equal to 10 and C is equal to 20. So the first thing we are going to do here is to locate the statement of variation. So the statement of variation there is A varies directly as B and inversely as C. Ayan yung statement of combined variation. So that by locating it, we can now apply the first step. That is by translating that statement of variation into symbols. This is a combination of direct and inverse variation. So A varies directly as B and inversely as C. If we translate it just like the way how we read it, so that will be A is equal to KB over C. Yung direct niya is A is equal to KB, then its inverse is C. Then its translation in terms of K, sabi natin, that would be K is equal to, multiply yung nasa left side tsaka yung nasa denominator, that's AC, that would be the numerator. Then kung ano yung kasama ng K, that would be the denominator. So it will be K is equal to AC over B. With the application of the second step, so since two equations na form natin, the second equation form, which is the equation for finding K, na K is equal to AC over B, yung first na gagamitin natin. With the help also of a complete value of A, B, and C in the problem. A is 8, B is 4, and C is 2. All we have to do is to substitute those values to this equation for us to find out for the value of K. So if we're going to do that, we come up with K is equal to, A is 8, that's 8 times C, which is 2 over 4. So pwedeng direct multiplication tayo, or we can use cancellation. So 8 times 2, that would be 16. And 16 divided by 4 is equal to 4. So we will come up with the value of K, which is equal to 4. And that value of K is to be substituted with the help of, with the use of step number 3. That's value of K na 4 is to be substituted on the first form equation na A is equal to KB over C. So if we're going to do that, we come up with A is equal to 4B over C. And that new form equation in step number 3, that is to be used in finding for the unknown in the problem. So let's go back to the problem. Sabi dito, we're going to find A when B is 10 and C is 20. So A is already equated into A. So all we have to do is just simply substitute those values there for us to find out for the value of A, with the help also of the value of K. So we do have here A is equal to 4 times B. B is 10 over C, which is 20. So, pwedeng multiply natin. That's 4 times 10. That would be 40 over 20. And 40 divided by 20 is equal to 2. So, the value of A that we are looking for in the problem is equal to 2. So, that's how we answer example number 1, which is a problem involving combined variation. Any questions? So, let's find out kung mas naintindihan by answering another example. So let's have example number 2. Example number 2, the given is, or the problem is, if x varies directly as the square of y and inversely as z, and x is equal to 1 when y is equal to 2 and z is equal to 3, find x when y is equal to 5 and z is equal to 6. So the statement of variation involved in the problem is x varies directly as the square of y and inversely as z. This time it's a combination of direct square variation and inverse variation. So the first thing we're going to do with the application of the first step is to translate that statement of variation into symbols. Doon muna tayo sa direct. X varies directly as the square of y. So it should be x is equal to k y squared. Since it's inversely as z, so over z tayo. So we come up with x is equal to k y squared over z. Then for us to find out for the formula for finding k, the second translation of it, so multiply these two, that's xz, that would be the numerator, that would be k is equal to xz over the variable na the quantity na kasama ng k, which is y squared. So we come up with k is equal to xz over y squared. Then with the application of the second step, using the second form equation na k is equal to xz over y squared, let's find out for the value of k with the help of a complete value of x, y, and z in the problem. X is 1, y is 2, while z is 3. Substituting it, so we come up with k is equal to x is 1, z is 3 over 2 squared. 2 squared is 4. So that's so meron tayong 1 times 3, that's 3, then 2 squared is 4. So that will come up with the value of k, which is equal to 3 over 4. Then that 3 over 4, for us to form the equation of variation, so substitute that 3 over 4 to the first form equation na x is equal to k y squared over z. So place of k there, we'll replace it by 3 over 4. So yung 3 on the numerator part here, then the 4 is on the denominator part. So it will come up with x is equal to 3y squared over 4z. It's just like you are going to put 3 over 4 here. So the 3 is on the numerator, then the 4 is on the denominator. So that will form this equation of variation. So that equation of variation is to be used in solving for what is asked in the problem or what is unknown in the given problem. So using x is equal to 3y squared over 4z, sabi dito, find x when y is 5 and z is 6. X is what we are going to find out. So substitute lang natin yung mga given. X is equal to 3 times y is 5. So that would be 5 squared over 4 times 6. So pwedeng gumamit ka ng cancellation dito. Pwede mo ito mag-cancel eh. 3 and 6. So matitira na lang dito sa baba ay 2. Mawawala na yung 3 doon. So 5 squared yun. So that would be 5 times 5. That would be 25 over 4. 4 dito eh. That would be 4 times 2. That would be 8. So we'll come up with 70. Pag inano natin, dinirect multiply natin, directly multiply natin. So kung 5 squared, that would be 25 times 3, that would be 75. And 6 times 4, that would be 24. So, ang kagandahan nga lang na ginawa natin kanina is that mas madali na agad natin makakuha yung final answer. Unlike this, na isi-simplify pa natin or i-reduce pa natin into its simplest form. Kasi ganun din naman yung makukuha natin. So we'll end up to, since 75 is not exactly divisible by 24, so but it can still be reduced into lowest term. So 75 over 24 in lowest term is equal to 25 over 8. That's also the same value na nakuha natin when we apply the cancellation. Diba? We come up with 25 over 8. That's the other way. Kasi pwede mong gawin yung direct multiplication and pwede mong gawin yung cancellation. So if you're used in using cancellation, then you can apply it. Or if you are used on using direct multiplication, then you can also apply it. It doesn't matter. You still come up with the same answer in the end. So the value of x there is equal to 25 over 8. Since 25 is not exactly divisible by 8, so it will stay as it is because it's already the simplest form of 8. So nakuha example number 2. Hopefully nakuha yun. So para mas maintindihan ito mas mabuti, so let's try example number 3. Example number 3, so the problem is, if z varies directly as the square of y and inversely as x, and z is equal to 16 when x is equal to 4 and y is equal to negative 5, find z when x is 6 and y is equal to negative 3. So a combination again of direct square variation and inverse variation. So the statement of variation there is z varies directly as the square of y and inversely as x. So using the first step, let's translate that into symbols. So z varies directly as the square of y. That will be z is equal to k y squared. It's because of the square of y. And inversely as x over x. So we come up with z is equal to ky squared over x. Then multiply these two. That would be the numerator when we get the formula for finding k, or the second translation of it. So x times z is xz over the quantity na kasama ng k, which is y squared. So we do have k, which is equal to xz over y squared. Then, using the second form equation in finding the value of k, na k is equal to xz over y squared, let's find out for the value of k with the help of complete value of z, x, and y in the problem. So start substituting it. So the value of x is 4, yung z is 16, then y is negative 5. So negative 5 squared. So 4 times 16, that would be 64. Then negative 5 times negative 5 is equal to 25. So we come up with 64 over 25. 64 is not exactly divisible by 25. Also, there are no factors, common factors other than 1 of 64 and 25. So I guess that's already the simplest form of it. And even though if it is written in proper form, we'll already accept that as an answer. So the value of k is 64 over 25. Then for the third step, so since we already know the value of k, which is 64 over 25, substitute it to the first form equation na z is equal to ky squared over x. So yung 64 over 25, 64 on the numerator part, and 25 on the denominator. Magiging kasama na ngayon siya ng x. Pag ginawa natin yon, we'll come up with z is equal to 64 y squared over 25 x. Then that new form equation in the third step is to be used in order for us to find out what is unknown in the problem. Ang hinahanap natin is find z when x is 6 and y is equal to negative 3. So substitute natin yon. So we'll have 64 times y. Y is negative 3 squared. Then over 25 times 6. So pwede nating simplify muna yung negative 3 squared. That would be 9. So magiging 32 times 3. So paano naging 32 times 3? Ganito yon. So, pag sinimplify mo yung negative 3 squared, that would be 9. And 9 and 6, pwede natin i-gamitan ng cancellation. Both of them are divisible by 3. So, magiging 3 na lang may iwan dito, magiging 2 dito. Ngayon, 64 is exactly divisible by 2. So, magiging 64 divided by 2, that would be 32. Kaya 32 times 3 na naiwan over 25 na lang on the denominator part. Then 32 times 3, we come up with 96 over 25. So that 96 over 25, again, 96 is not exactly divisible by 25, and even though it is written in improper form, then we already accept that as an answer because there are no common factors anymore other than 1 na pwede natin magamit in order for us to reduce that into its simplest form. So that means it's already the simplest form of it. So that's why we already accepted that as an answer. So the value of z is equal to 96 over 25. So that's how we answer example number 3. So let's try one more para mas maintindihan pa ng sobra-sobra. So let's have example number 4. So in sample number 4, so the problem is if S varies jointly as T and V and inversely as W, and S is equal to 10 when T is equal to negative 8, V is negative 6 rather, and W is negative 4, find V when S is negative 2, T is 1, and W is 5. So the statement of variation in the problem is this. So that's S varies jointly as TV and inversely as W. So using the first step, let us translate that statement into symbols. So S varies jointly as T and V. So parang yung direct variation translation, di ba? So that should be S is equal to KTV. And inversely as W, so over W siya. So we have S is equal to KTV over W. Then for us to translate it in terms of K, multiply yung dalawa. That would be the numerator. Yung kasama ng K, ayun yung denominator. So it will be K is equal to SW over TV. Then with the application of the second step, using K is equal to SW over TV, so let's start substituting it by using a complete value of STVW in the problem. S is 10, T is negative 8, V is 6, and W is negative 4. So 10 yung S, W is negative 4, T is negative 8, while V is 6. So pwede natin cancel to. Pag kinancel natin yan, since para sila negative, so magiging positive yan. So 2 na may iwan dito. Kung 2 to, exactly divisible siya by 10, magiging 5 na lang to over 6. So 5 over 6 ang magiging sagot dapat natin. So, pero ang ginawa dito, we is multiplying it directly first. So 10 times negative 4 is negative 40. 8 times 6 is equal to, negative 8 times 6 is equal to negative 48. Then, reducing it into simplest forms, since both of them are negative, so we'll come up with a positive answer. And both 40 and 48 are divisible by 8. So 40 divided by 8 is 5. 48 divided by 8 is 6. So that will come up with the value of K, which is equal to 5 over 6. So, kayo na bahala mag-umusga, which is the better way, yung using the cancellation or using the multiplying it directly. So, it's again, it's up to you kung saan kayo mas madadalian. So still, but even though you are using either way, still you'll come up with the same answer as the value of K, which is equal to 5 over 6. Then for the third step, that value of K na 5 over 6 is to be substituted to the first form equation na S equal to KTB over W. So again, yung 5 since fraction yan, 5 yung magiging numerator, then 6 magiging denominator na kasama ng W. So we'll end up to, or will it will be equal to, when we substituted it, that K, the value of K na 5 over 6, as S equal to 5TV over 6W. And that S is equal to 5TV over 6W, that is to be used in order for us to find out what is unknown in the problem. So sabi dito, find V when S is negative 2, T is 1, and W is 5. So V is what we're looking for. Ito yon. Even though it's not equated into V, but still, this equation that we formed in the third step is very useful in order for us to find out or what is unknown in the problem. So, substitute lang natin. Pag sinubstitute natin yan, S given there is negative 2. Is equal to 5 times 1. 1 yung value ng T. Then over 6 times W, the value is 5. So, multiply na natin. 6 times 5, that would be 30. Then 5 times 1 is 5. Magiging 5B na lang to. So, 30 times negative 2. That would be negative 60. Magiging 5B is equal to negative 60. So, since we are looking for V here, so you have to divide both sides of the equation by 5 for you to find for the value of B. So, magiging negative 60 divided by 5. So, ilan yun? So, magiging V is equal to negative 12. So, yung hinahanap natin in the problem is the value of B. And that value of B is negative 12. So, that's how we answer example number 4. So, I hope that you understand already on how to solve a variation na tinatawag natin combined variation. So, that would be all for today. Goodbye, class.